Okay, today guys, we are going to be taking another cheeky look at VeChain, and specifically the price action of the VET token. We'll be taking a look at the daily chart and the hourly chart along with 𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗠𝗘𝗥𝗦's dashboard to see some of the issues in terms of liquidity and fear and greed. As we get into this video guys, if you do find it useful and informative, do go ahead and hit that like button. We both really do appreciate it. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with those new cryptocurrencies, hidden gems, technical analysis, and news, then why not subscribe? By subscribing, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything we do here. Hit the bell, tap on all, and you won't miss a single video. Right, Chris, before we jump on down, is there anything else that you want to bring up in terms of VeChain?
Just, the IVF service app, I think it's a wonderful thing. There's lots of other stuff I think that's happening in the background, so it's going to be interesting the next few months.
It really is. Right, let's jump on down and get right on into it.
Let's do it.
Okay guys, the first thing we need to talk about is how much fear is in this space right now. So as we can see here, this is the generalized fear and greed index. And this is for the entire crypto space. So this is not just VeChain, but it's always good to understand where this one is in relation to how VeChain is currently performing. So at the point of recording this video today, this is actually rated at a 23, so extreme fear. Yesterday it was actually slightly higher at 28, so just fearful. And ultimately extreme fear is pretty much everywhere at the moment. Now this is important to understand because often they say buy the fear and sell the news. And in the case of when things are indicating extreme fear, this could be a potential purchasing opportunity. And when there is greed, you do want to be expecting a bit of a pullback. So it's always good to know how this one is showing us, the entire crypto space. Now, when we actually jump down over into the 𝗲 dashboard, we actually have 6 indicators here, or power factors that they call them. And these are actually really crucial to understanding how VeChain is performing specifically against the rest of the crypto space. So even the 𝗲 platform here, the artificial intelligence has indicated that the fear and greed index for VeChain is a grade D. This is actually indicating that it is incredibly fearful as well. So this is really much, VeChain is very much in line with the entire crypto space at this point in time. So for VeChain being where it is, this could potentially be indicating to us as a buying opportunity for VeChain. And obviously you have to couple this piece of data with that of the charts and get into the charts and understand the technicals to know where your buying opportunities may actually be. So right now where we are seeing this extreme fear at this real low end here, compared to where it was previously, it's an indicator that is quite useful in understanding where we are in the cycle. And obviously, guys, we obviously have the 𝗕𝗢𝗔𝗡 ratio over here as well. And again, this one is showing us also a grade D. And this is in line with many of those other cryptocurrencies that we see in the space at the moment, where 𝗕𝗢𝗔𝗡 is basically saying that there's liquidity issues, right? So for VeChain and the VET token, there seems to be pretty bad liquidity issues, along with many of these other altcoins as well. So not entirely certain what's quite going on and what is causing the liquidity issues at the moment. And across specifically most of these altcoins in this particular point in time, it's obviously having a bit of a compounding effect to the entire project. So it's not actually helping the fear and greed index, recover, and it's definitely a potential problem. So we need to figure out what's going on there. It could be that 1, 2, or so exchanges actually having problems with liquidity, etc. So right now, this is actually a grade D, and that AI has pinpointed this one as a potential issue. And of course, when you have fear and greed index down at this particular grade D level, and you have the 𝗕𝗢𝗔𝗡 ratio at grade D, this is going to affect your Sharpe ratio. The Sharpe ratio here is your risk to rewards, and this is showing us also at a grade D. So again, that AI has now been able to pinpoint that because there's liquidity issues and there's fear and greed and lots of fear in the space, this is going to have an impact against your rewards that you're going to be generating. So right now you can see what's been going on since this fear and greed index started to really fall down and the 𝗕𝗢𝗔𝗡 ratio was starting to get affected. You can see at the same point in time here, the risk to rewards were also dropping down. So again, the AI has picked out this as a grade D. So again, it's looking like it's quite fearful, quite a few issues with liquidity, and again, there's now risks to your rewards. With all this being said though, the profitability, that return on investment, is actually the highest it can be, up at a grade A1. So again, that AI has looked back and seen everything that has been going on and the fantastic moves VeChain has been making. It still puts this thing up as a really high profitable coin, and therefore it's still a good level of investment. And again, that peak end value demand is also at a B2. So these two bottom charts down at the bottom here are actually showing us some pretty good information, whereas the four above here, including the moving averages, are actually showing us that there's some concerns when it comes to VeChain. If we scroll up, we can see the overall rating for VeChain is at a C2. And if we go up into our cryptocurrency assets here, and what we'll do is we'll just list this by market capitalization and then show all. We can obviously see down here where Bitcoin here is also a C2 rating, was a C1 yesterday, etc. So we're up in line with these, right? We obviously have basically VeChain dropping to a C2 from C1 yesterday in the same way that Bitcoin did. And again, there are a few good areas in here, so such as Polygon, for example. So do check out 𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗠𝗘𝗥𝗦 platform if you want to get a little bit more clarity on some of those cryptocurrencies. Now let's jump back over into that world of Bitcoin. Since we briefly mentioned it, it's always good to understand where Bitcoin is in terms of its dominance to the market. Right now, we can see over here, this is the current situation, and we are starting to increase Bitcoin's dominance. And over here is the 2017-2018 run, and we can see that Bitcoin actually pulled down towards the 37% level before eventually climbing its way back up to 67%, and then all those altcoins going parabolic bring Bitcoin's dominance down towards 32%. We've spoken about this quite a bit on both the live streams and many of our videos, and my expectations are that Bitcoin's dominance will actually increase towards this 50% level. It may go a little bit higher. I do not think it will go as high as it has done over here at the 67% area. I find that actually this is going to be too high considering the number of cryptocurrencies that we have this bull run than we did previous bull run. So my expectations are that we might climb up towards the 60% area before everything goes parabolic and bringing Bitcoin's dominance down towards the 30% area. So right now, where we are within the cycle, it's always good to know where Bitcoin is because this does relate to how VeChain is going to be performing. Now, what we're going to do is just jump on over into our VeChain chart here. So this is VeChain, or the VET token, to the USDT, the daily chart, and we are using Binance as the data source here. We've got a few things on this chart, and obviously it's been kept quite clean to start with, but ultimately, guys, we have a 50, 100, and 200 moving average, and we also have our Bollinger Bands here as well. Okay, so what we could do is we can see yesterday we actually wicked down to the lower band here, okay, and obviously we're getting had a bit of a recovery off from this area, and we're starting to pull back down towards this lower band right now. Now, obviously these bands were kind of contracting and getting quite tight, as we did see over here as well, and the expectations could have been that we saw another kind of pullback like this. Now, ultimately, we've actually held up quite well at the moment against these Bollinger Bands, but again, we're not out of the woods yet, so we have to be quite mindful of what's going to be going on here in the short term. Now, as we get into this, we're going to go into the hourly chart and see exactly what's going on from the real granular level. But before we get into that, it's always important that we actually put everything back on this chart and zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture. So again, here we've actually got quite a bit of data on the chart. So what we're first of all going to do is I'm just going to hide those Bollinger Bands, make it a little bit cleaner and easier to see. And what we're going to talk about is this 5-wave strategy that, or Elliott wave theory that we can kind of see forming here. Now, we have wave 1. This was starting out over in March of 2020 in that crash. And obviously wave 1 peaked up here towards August time. And I think a lot of people can remember the fantastic highs of August 2020 if you're in this space. The pullback was relatively flat, and this actually brought VeChain down to our low area of wave 2 towards the end of the year, around October time. And then since then, we were into wave 3, and wave 3 obviously topped out up in April of this year. With wave 4 coming a really sharp correction to the downside, we potentially have bottomed out on this correction, and I'll go into why I think this in just a moment. And then from here, we are looking to go into wave 5, which puts VeChain up at a reasonable $1 level. Okay, so let's talk about what is going on here. We obviously have wave 1 and wave 2. So wave 1 moves up to the upside here and peaks out towards that August time. Now, wave 2 is typically 50 to 60% of wave 1. Okay, and in the case that we see here, we actually see that, let me grab my price range. We actually saw that wave 2 was actually a 62% move. So pretty much exactly what you'd expect to happen when you have a correction of this nature. So wave 1, and then we have a 62% move, which would be wave 2's correction. Now, wave 2 being flat means wave 4 is sharp, and if wave two's correction was sharp, then we'd have wave 4 being flat. So right now that's in line. Now, when it comes to why I think we potentially have bottomed out here in terms of wave 4, we grab this, it's normally typically only 40% move, and we actually have an 81% move. So it's overextended against that current positioning. So my theory here is that actually it's likely that we are not going to be going any further than this. And I think that this potentially is the bottom. There is, of course, the possibility that it could fall down a little bit lower. Nothing is impossible. But ultimately, the expectations here are that actually Bitcoin has bottomed out. And as a result of that, VeChain has also bottomed out. So right now, that means that we'll be heading into wave 5 for the second half of this year, where we could see these altcoins go parabolic and VeChain would not be left alone and would potentially go up towards $1 as well. So let's get into some of the clarity of what's going on in a bit more detail. Let's go ahead and just zoom in and make this a little bit bigger. So right now, we do have a bit of interesting things going on here. We obviously have a downward trend and loads of people calling out a bear market. And obviously at the same time, we do have plenty of additional pieces of information that we need to look at and reflect on. We also have many of these support lines and resistance lines. And we also have those moving averages. We have this yellow box here. This is an area that we want to be going into and passing through. And this is in line with our Fibonacci retracement areas, the 0.618, the 702, and the 786. And we want to get through that. Okay, let's go ahead and pull this down into our hourly view. And this is where we're going to get the most clarity on what is going on in the shorter term. Obviously, right now, we did see that we actually found a bit of an upward trend kind of ticking off here. And we can see this is quite clear as day, a pretty strong, solid upward trend forming just here on the hourly. Okay, there's multiple touch points on this particular level. Now, what's really interesting about this is we can go ahead and grab hold of this level and actually see that we're going to be getting an intersect or a crossover here. And this triangular wedge that's forming, if I just pull this down a little bit, you can see that actually within the next few hours, we are likely to see a bit of a breakthrough or a breakdown. So there's going to be an event here for VeChain that's either going to see this thing move phenomenally to the upside or break down to the new lower lows and breaking this upward trend altogether. Now, again, this is a short-term thing, and it's a part of the bigger picture also as we move into wave 5, move up to the dollar level. And in the short term, it's going to be turbulence along that journey. So right now, all of these little things here on the shorter term trades, if that's what you want to do, will help you understand where we are likely to be going. So right now, considering that our relative strength index is actually a reasonable level of 45, my expectations are that actually we're more than likely going to have that break up to the upside just here. Okay, so if we do that, then actually we'll be looking at moving VeChain up to about that 11.2 cent area, which is the previous area of support and resistance before we had this basic pullback just here, right? So ultimately, this is what my expectations are, that we'll have this breakthrough event, moving the price up towards our 11.2 cent area. If we can move past this area, we could potentially go back up a little bit further before having a pullback and retesting this area here as a good area of support. So everything here to play for in terms of how VeChain could potentially get out of this area altogether and move to the upside. So things are definitely going to be really interesting today and going into tomorrow to see how VeChain does perform and whether or not I am wrong about that and we have a breakdown event where actually we start seeing VeChain fall to those lower areas altogether. And again, we'll be looking for some strong support areas. Again, there's going to be one at about 9.8 if we were to fall down anywhere. That's going to be a good strong support zone for us. And I don't think it has a huge amount of room to actually fall down because ultimately that relative strength index will not allow it. So right now, everything on this hourly chart is looking pretty good for a break up event rather than a breakdown event. But again, if Bitcoin decides that it wants to misbehave, it will unfortunately end up affecting a VeChain as well. So again, guys, I think ultimately we have to be mindful of everything that's going on in this space. Everything from our Elliott wave moving up to those fantastic highs of $1, potentially even higher than that, depending on any external factors that are not included inside the technicals. Everything from the assets that we've been speaking about in terms of those power factors for VeChain in the 𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗠𝗘𝗥𝗦 platform, as to whether or not those liquidity issues are going to get fixed. If these liquidity issues do get fixed, then ultimately I do think that the fear in the space will change as well. And ultimately this will start increasing our Sharpe ratio and the rewards. And then obviously our profitability will continue to be an A1 rating. So guys, in my opinion here, that ultimately we are on the cusp of change when it comes to what's going on with VeChain on the shorter term. I think longer term, it's always good to make sure that we're fully aware of where we are heading. And that's right up the top here towards that dollar level. And it's important to be mindful as well of what we're being told the space is like versus what is actually happening here in the space as well at coin level. And in the case of VeChain here, I do think that once the liquidity issues are resolved, I think that ultimately the fear and greed index will increase a little bit, which will have an impact on the Sharpe ratio. But ultimately, what we need to see is basically Bitcoin to start behaving itself a little bit, for Bitcoin's dominance to steadily increase a bit here. And this can be done by Bitcoin actually increasing in value. So the expectations are that this will actually go up to 50%. And obviously all of these things will have an impact on VeChain moving further forward. Chris, now I've gone through quite a bit of the technical stuff there just to kind of give everyone a kind of a high level overview of what is going on in the space in terms of general fear, in terms of how 𝗖𝗢 is indicating that there are issues with VeChain right now. We've obviously spoken about the Bitcoin dominance rising up towards 50%, and obviously where VeChain is likely to go towards $1 from a technical point of view. But is there anything else from a fundamental point of view that you'd like to bring up?
Just that, it's going to take a while to sort of do all the sideways movement that's required. I think there seems to be a bit of a lack of understanding that we're not saying tomorrow the price is going to go shooting up to $1. I read the comments and I'm scratching my head a little bit, to be honest. I don't know if we're not being clear enough, but there's lots of FUD. You've got to understand that there's people that have come from traditional markets into a crypto market and they don't behave necessarily in the same way. There's lots of talk of the death cross. And, I guess some of the comments, you're wrong. I'm just saying, we'll see, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that go on, right? We talk about death crosses and the impact of them. And ultimately, yeah, a death cross sounds worse than it actually is almost sometimes. Because usually what happens is because it's a bit of a delayed response, the cross will happen, but the price will actually move up once that cross has actually happened. And then after it's actually occurred by a series of days, then you start to see the impact of it. So actually the price expectation is the expectation is the price will actually move up on a death cross on the shorter term before actually going down. So again, we'll have to see what happens in terms of that death cross. And, I still am not 100% confident that that will actually come to fruition. Ultimately, this is a very different scenario that we've had to many other years. Ultimately, 2017 was an interesting year. It was vastly different to 2013. And obviously, here we are in 2021, which again is different to that of 2017 and 2013. We obviously have new institutions manipulating markets here. And again, it doesn't react in the same way that regular kind of stock market reacts. So very emotional market, very volatile, considering it's a very, very low market capitalization, not a lot of money here, and not a lot of money is needed to move the needle. We've spoken about this, why do these institutions do reports to figure out how much money it takes to move the needle, right? There's only one reason you want to know how much money it takes to move the needle, guys. But anyway, we won't go into too much more detail. Ultimately, my opinion here is that VeChain is going to be in this wave 5 shortly. And it will, by the second half of this year, we will see VeChain, in my opinion, move up towards that dollar level. Guys, if you found this video useful and informative, hit that like button. We both really do appreciate it. And of course, if you happen to be new to the channel and you would like to stay up to date with the new cryptocurrencies, the hidden gems, technical analysis, and news, why not subscribe? By subscribing, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything we do here. Hit the bell, tap on all, and you won't miss a single video. With that said, done and out of the way, guys, we hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you all in the next one.
Yeah, take care.